So what is a real estate offer and how do you make one? A real estate offer is usually done with the assistance of a real estate agent, and it's where the buyer normally writes on a contract the terms and conditions of what the buyer is agreeing to purchase the property for. So the buyer is agreeing to purchase, for example, a residential real estate property for $250,000. He's agreeing to maybe close in 30 days. And then there are other terms in the contract, including who's paying closing costs, what type of inspection period there is. And so it contains all these different terms and conditions that are going to be set up for the transaction. So when the seller receives the offer is going to be a filled out contract, and it's going to be signed by the buyer, and it's going to contain all of the terms and conditions that the buyer is agreeable to. At that point, it's then the seller's responsibility to take a look at the contract and ascertain and discern whether the seller is in agreement with what the buyer's asking and agreeing to purchase the property for. So at that point, the seller has different options. The seller can agree to the terms and conditions that the buyer has offered. The seller can just say, no, I don't agree to those terms, and nothing proceed forward. Or the seller can agree partially to the terms and conditions and disagree with some of the conditions, but make a counteroffer to the buyer which changes some of the terms and the conditions. So what a counteroffer is the seller saying to the buyer that he agrees with certain conditions but wants to change some of those terms that the buyer has offered. And a counteroffer could be made by the buyer or by the seller. It doesn't have to be made by the seller. Finally, once the seller and the buyer come to an agreement on what the buyer and what the seller will sell and buy the property for, in order to solidify that agreement, there must be a fully signed contract.